how sometimes it could be one of the things that you love the most but won't love you back sometimes. When we start talking about there's a difference of creating music and being in the music industry.
Scaled, the platform you need.
Welcome to another episode of the Skilled Edge Show, where we speak with entrepreneurs, CEOs, and service based business owners about how to increase cash flow, profits using fully automated AI marketing systems, while also repairing credit and securing funding to scale their operations. So, in this show, we don't just talk about business growth, we also dive deep into the human side of success, exploring the four core domains that shape who we actually are, which is body, being, balance, and business. So sit back as we get ready for a powerful, insightful conversation that goes beyond profits. Today, I'm thrilled to have Joseph Mr. Hit Record Lopez with us. Joseph Mr. Hit Record Lopez is an Emmy and Telly Award winning national charting music producer, songwriter, audio engineer, and recording artist based in Greater Atlanta area. A full sale graduate with accolades across music, sync, audio. He has mixed major ESPN programs, including the Baseball Tonight, College Football Live, the NBA Draft Lottery, and the EME Sports Center. Joseph has contributed to over 40 songs on terrestrial radio, including 100 charting track DWI with Mims and VIC, and has performed alongside artists like Post Malone, Becky G, Pitbull, Lil Wayne, Florida, and many others. He is the in-house producer for Latin pop artist Gabi B and has multiple TV placements, including co-writing the theme song for Hollywood Medium and producing and co-writing the themes for season 1 and 2 of Dev's House. His song Champion Cultura with Bikina and also it was also featured as the ESPN's Music of the Month, heard across programs like First Take, the Women's NCAA Tournament, Sports Center, and NBA coverage. Welcome to the show, Mr. Hit Record. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the intro and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with your journey. I had, how did you get into the music industry? Was it the first part you envisioned for yourself?
Well, I started music not necessarily to get into the music industry, but just because I felt passionate about it. I recorded I actually started like really, really young, like writing lyrical poems when I was like 9 years old, just writing down what would become raps, but didn't kind of start off that way. And I just remember when I was little joining rap ciphers and kind of getting a good response from some of the things that I was writing. And I ended up recording my first song when I was in ninth grade, when when I was 14 years old, on uh, a bootleg kind of beat program. Just trying to teach myself how to record and make beats and start to songwrite. That's kind of where I got, my feet wet into creating music. At the time, sort of started then getting booked for performances and things like that while I was in high school. Eventually, kind of feeling like, oh, well, maybe this could actually be a career path. And that's when I ended up going to Full Sail and getting my degree in recording arts and kind of really starting what then I would consider my professional journey into the music industry after I graduated in kind of that time frame. So started off kind of from a place of passion, still is, but kind of evolved into, well, how could I make a living doing music, doing audio, and everything in between.
Mhm. Yeah, so I see you've worked with a lot of artists. What was it about the music industry that drew you in?
I just fell in love, I guess, with the process. I think, as you know, also as a creative and as an artist, sort of like when you find that moment in creating a song where it's like, oh, I feel like I have something. Um, I just love playing a role. Like I said, whether it's writing, whether it's producing, whether it's mixing, whether it's being the artist, but just feeling that collaborative energy where when you're in the moment and you just feel like there's something here. And I do think in that collaboration, like you were saying, like working with a lot of artists, there's a lot of psychology I think that goes into producing music and vulnerability when working with people and kinda leaving everything out in the open to kinda get across the message and the feeling and the emotion that you wanna kinda speak through the music. So, I really enjoy that part of it, like, when collaborating with other people, um, and seeing their perspective on things, you know? I have the ability to go in there and write a song, record a s like, do everything myself, but I really like being able to bounce ideas and something that I might have approached one way, all of a sudden I see somebody approach it a different way, and now it kind of gives me a different creative spark in that energy.
Yeah. So what's the most rewarding part of working with artists?
I would say for me on the producer side of things is helping be a, a vehicle to get their vision out, right? Like I think that there's a lot of times as creatives, we have so much in our head, right? And kind of trying to paint that picture through music. And I think one of the most rewarding things for me is to be able to help see that vision that's in their mind come to life, and sometimes in a way that they didn't even see it in their head. But when it's said and done, where they kind of have that feeling, it was like, wow, like it was just an idea and now it's real. I feel like that's kind of the most rewarding part.
Yeah. So do you believe that your work as a producer is so important in today's music landscape?
I think for sure. I mean, I think with things like AI and with the different technologies, I'm not like not even just from the musical creation side itself, instrumentation and that's obviously still a huge role, but just having that human element of emotion, right? Like just being able to collaborate back and forth and have ideas and fill the gaps of, like I said, emotion, I think is still so important, even with as technology is growing, just to have fresh ideas, new perspectives, and be able to, like I said, like help take something that sonically can sound good, but help push it, help direct it in a way that really only a human can. So I think that part of it is still so important. I work with all different types of people with all different types of talent, and just sort of being able to hopefully be a part of the glue that helps stick everything together at the end of the day is what I kind of hang my hat on.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about your professional journey, I'd like to go deeper into areas that shape not just our careers, but our lives as a whole. And I'll be exploring, then what gives us the complete picture of success. As entrepreneurs, we go through a lot mentally, emotionally, and physically. So how do you prioritize your health and, how has it impacted your work?
I think obviously that's a great question, and it's loaded in a lot of ways. I think as creatives and entrepreneurs and people who work hard, um, I think it's the thing that's the toughest to find a lot of times is balance. Balance between work, balance between paying the bills and chasing our dreams and feeling accomplished. And like you list off, you read some of my bio there, and it's funny because as much as a lot of people have looked to me as a story of success in a lot of ways, there's most days I feel like I totally have underachieved or still hungry to achieve whatever the next thing is, or feel like, oh man, I could have done more or could do more. And so just finding that balance of, continuing to strive and be great, but also enjoying life, right? Enjoying family, enjoying time to yourself, and like you said, those mental health scenarios. I do feel like it is such an important part of being in the industry, being in any industry, being an entrepreneur. And one thing I tell to other people that I try to also impress upon myself is remembering your smile, like remembering the reasons why you do certain things. And regardless of what the money that's involved, regardless of the titles or the prestige or whatever those other things are, if you're doing it for the reasons that make you smile, that you really, find your happiness, I feel like those are the things that kind of keep me motivated and keep me going and pushing along in the personal journey.
Right. So, what's your go-to routine for staying active and grounded amidst your busy schedule?
It fluctuates a lot. I travel a lot, which sometimes makes it hard. I will say, like when I worked, for instance, at ESPN, it was very really tough because the schedule at ESPN was crazy, and then I was trying to also balance pretty much a full time music plate. And although at the time between the two, the money was good, and I had a nice house and the whole thing, I realized, oh well, there were other parts of my life that were struggling. I was gaining weight. I was less focused one time with my daughter who's now 11, and some of these other aspects and of the personal life and family. And I ended up kind of making a move to walk away from that, kind of picking and choosing where and when and what's sort of the most important. Now, I lost like 30 pounds, so I kind of try to stay as active as I can in the gym and eating healthier and sort of trying to prolong life in those ways, and also trying to find the right balance. I find a lot of joy in having dinner with the family, and really trying to, as much as I travel for work, also then try to balance that with travel for pleasure, going on trips for Thanksgiving, or like doing these types of family oriented or just mental breaks, right, from the hectic run and gun of the entrepreneurial grind. So um it's still a work in progress, but those are definitely things through life and experience try to learn and continue to try to balance.
Right. So, has there been any time that your physical health directly affected your performance?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, like I think there have been plenty of times throughout the years, and as I've gotten a little bit older and a little bit more seasoned, where sometimes I feel like the body just can't. I just feel like through the years of all the different experiences I had, I always sort of, especially in my late teens and through my 20s, like would would try to take on the world, right? Like as far and um a lot of that is a testament to the grind and the work ethic, and I don't necessarily regret it per se, but there were times and there have been times where I would hit a wall. I would just get exhausted. I would be getting sick. Um, and my body would just be telling me to slow down. So now that I can recognize those signs a little bit more often, there are still times where I feel like I have to push through and make it happen. But, you know, I try not to get to that point, right? Where it's like, oh wow, like I know if I hit this wall, I'm gonna be down for the next few days because now I have to let my body recover. And so for sure, definitely I've hit those walls before, and again, I think going back to that keyword of balance is trying to find the right balance so don't keep hitting those in the future as often.
Yeah. So, how do you stay connected, to your purpose and life? What drives you on a deeper level to keep showing up and serving others?
I think there have been times, especially when it comes to music, where I've uh tried to walk away from it. Like where it was like, uh people kind of they're not in the music industry, don't understand how sometimes it could be one of the things that you love the most but won't love you back sometimes. And there have been plenty of times where it's like, okay, there's areas where I feel like I could make more money or I could redesign what my purpose is. And, I have always, though, in some way, shape, or form, been naturally drawn back to music in the music industry in some way, shape, or form. And so I've learned to kind of accept even the idea of what success even means. Like, right, when you're younger and you're first starting, and it's all about platinum plaques and Grammys and making the fact that at this stage in my life, I can have a stretch of years where essentially music is my full time income thing that has helped paying the bills. Like, I've had to kind of come to grips. Like, there's an element of success in that is motivating, that keeps me going, and also not be afraid of change and walking away, knowing that whatever my purpose is today, it could be different in 5 years from now. So accepting in the moment, chasing what I feel is fulfilling now, but also feeling okay with saying, hey, the goals that I had 5 years ago or 10 years ago, those can change too, and I can have a different purpose tomorrow. So that's kind of where I'm at mentally with a lot of those types of things.
Yeah, so for many people, faith and mindfulness practices are at the center of their lives. So how does your faith or sense of being influence your business or your relationships?
I think a lot of it kind of comes down to morality, right? Like, I think in the entertainment and the music business, and a lot of these, entrepreneurial businesses. I also have my family. We have a used car dealership, which I'm an investor and a partner in. I also have my real estate license, and try to diversify in different ways. And a lot of these sort of type of industries, and more so, especially the music industry, there could be a lot of people who are kind of scandalous or snakes or kind of deceiving, deceitful. And I realized early on, like, I'm never gonna be the hero in everybody's story. Sometimes you're gonna be the villain in somebody's story, regardless of how much you try to be the good guy or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, I try to do right by myself and other people that I work with. Right, I try to go through it like, the whole treat people like you want to be treated, and try to be fair and be an advocate for other artists and creatives, and kind of through the system. And I feel like, you know, that sense of being and that morality and faith-based purpose and all these types of situations that kind of all converge in that thought process, where it's like, there's certain things that I might have a little bit more knowledge than the next person who might be a little bit less experienced than I am in an area, where there could be a scenario where if I wanted to, I could take advantage. But I don't think that's right. And so, I've always been somebody too, when I do see somebody who I feel like is in that position, sort of be one who sticks up and be an advocate, to hopefully not letting that happen, and be a change, just because it happens and just because it's normal business in the business world, or the industry, doesn't necessarily mean that that's how I have to operate or maneuver.
Yeah, so you're in a high demand industry. How do you maintain close relationship with those closest to you?
I think, I think a lot of that comes back to kind of what I was just saying, right? Like, trying to treat people right, have a certain level of communication, and the character sort of just speaks for itself. I have sort of a personal motto: embrace over chase. There has been a lot of times, especially through my younger years, where it's like there's people who I would look up to and say, "Oh wow, like, I'd really love to work with this person," and I feel like I'm just constantly chasing them, chasing them, chasing them. And a lot of times that wouldn't amount to those collaborations or those relationships. Then there would be people who would come along, and it would just be natural, right? We connect, and they may not be on that same level, but we're growing together. Or there might be people who are on that level, and those things just sort of happen in a natural way. So I've learned to sort of just embrace those relationships as they come from, in a natural form. And I feel like that the people who are meant to, and kind of, sur- you know, surround myself in my cipher, are the ones who kind of stick around. And there almost doesn't need to be a lot of explaining going on, or on why. It just is. So I think a lot of the people that I work with on a more consistent basis kind of get an idea of what I'm about, and hopefully that's in a positive way. And then usually that word of mouth is what kind of helps, spawn whether it's other relationships or business ventures, and whether that's on the business side or personally as well, where it's like, oh, Joe's a pretty good dude, or I work with him on this. We had a good experience with this or that, and um, and that's kind of how I've been rocking.
Right. So let's talk about business, the area where you poured in your time, your creativity, your leadership. What are the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your career that shaped the way you approach your music business today?
I think you can't buy back time is an important one. Like I was saying, like when I left ESPN, some of these other things. I also think when it came to working with artists, I used to own and manage recording studios and just kind of be in the grind of essentially selling time, right? Where it's like, how many hours can you book, hourly rates, everything is based off of time. Nowadays when I take on clients, it's less about how many clients that I can take on, but how much can I be involved in a certain project, right? It's more about packages and putting things together. So my model has changed from that sense of just sort of doing things that exchange time for time, money for time per se. Obviously, there's going to be time commitment in anything that's involved, but really more so a scenario where it's like, how, is this impactful? Like, are these artists that I want to be working with? Is whatever we're doing, is there a purpose to it, right? Like if we're working on music for sync or whatever the case is, it's like, is this just going to sit on somebody's hard drive, or is this a scenario where this has a shot in a catalog that whether it's tomorrow or 5 years from now, somebody could listen to this and say, this is a good fit for, so working with intentionality, I think is something that has really grown in my everyday workflow.
Yeah, so what's something that you wish you knew when you were just starting out?
I wish I knew sort of essentially to be around people and scenarios where it's happened, right? Like I think nowadays it is a little easier. Like right now we're connecting through the internet and we're able to have these conversations, and I think that's a huge part of it. I still think that being able to maneuver around and being in certain rooms, and a lot of times it's not even physically, but having conversations like these, being in communities, connecting and networking. Um, I think that that's such an important part of the process that, you know, when we're just young and starting out, we kind of feel like we want to just take it all on our own and not really maybe listen to anybody else. Like, some of it is by choice, some of it is by force, right? Like I never really felt like I had mentors or whatever growing up in the industry or people to guide me. So some of it was just figuring it out. At the same time, it's like if I could almost mentor my younger self, it would have been like, hey, like put yourself in these rooms in a more consistent basis. Like don't necessarily just be off in your own bubble. And there's an important element of that, but networking, just being, like I said, part of communities, I think is an extremely important part of growing your skill set, seeing different perspectives and all those types of things.
Yeah, so what are some bottlenecks or challenges you're currently navigating and how are you approaching them?
Going back to kind of the same thing, time. Time is always a bottleneck, right? Especially when somebody's trying to be an innovator and a creative and want to do a bunch of different things, and you realize, wow, there's only a certain amount of hours in each day. I think obviously for most people, financial bottlenecks always occur, right? Like there's bills to pay, you gotta pay the rent or the mortgage or the light bill or whatever the case is, and you could be working on that next project that you feel so passionately about, but you can't necessarily ignore the bill. So I feel like for most creatives, it's those things, time and money become a huge bottleneck toward the creative sort of dreams that they look to accomplish every day.
Yeah. So, in your experience, what separates producers that thrive long term from those that fade out?
Um, I think one of the big things is showing up. I think with those bottlenecks that we just spoke about can be I know like I graduated Full Sail like in '06 or something like that. And I can tell you that in my class there's only a few people that I know who are still active and consistent, one of which is a good friend of mine, Shah, who's now Grammy Award winner, engineer, worked with artists like her and did a bunch of has done a bunch of stuff. But him and I, right, like are one of the few people who have stuck through it, like, and just using that as an example of, in a school that was based on people who had an interest in music and production and recording and mixing and audio and all these different facets of it. I would say 90% no longer do it. Some of it is talent, some of it is drive, some of it is life, right? But I think showing up is step 1, and I think, like I said, even through the course of the years, I've had my experiences with trying to walk away and then still finding myself showing up, even when I'm like, "I'm done with this," or whatever, and then some other project, somebody, you know, needs me and some involved in something or whatever the case is, and then I find myself back in the mix. So, I would say showing up honestly is the number 1 part of it, not quitting.
Yeah. So, what roles have systems, automations, and even access to funding played in helping you scale and stay consistent?
Honestly, I know that earlier, we mentioned AI maybe in a negative connotation when it comes to music and some of the ways that it replaces things. But I can say there are things within AI that have made processes easier as far as organizationally. Um, I've also tried to like when I noticed that when it comes to organizing music, right? Like, in the world of sync licensing and just in the world of commercial releases, right? Like when trying to put together, keep everything organized, because as artists, as producers, like we're wearing so many hats. If we're not signed to a huge major label and have 200 people working on our staff, I think that organization becomes key. So, like even in processes when I'm doing bounces and doing mixes and stuff like that, my flow and how that I organize those things become very important, and how to keep myself on task, keep things quick but efficient, and also not have myself lost. Like something might be faster in the moment, but later end up compounding on itself that makes it slower for me in the long term. So, creating systems in my mix templates, in the way that I upload things into Disco, in the way that I handle correspondence with emails, and like I said, utilizing chat GBT to help me with some of those things as far as to help polish and be another sort of set of eyes for those types of things, and even images for cover arts that are for more so based for sync and things like that, to keep things moving, to allow me freed up time to do other things that I need my hands on.
Right. So, you recently created a community for artists and producers. Tell us about it.
So yeah, it's called Hit Record Academy. I've realized throughout the years I get messaged a lot from other collaborators, other creatives, and I figured it was a good place to sort of centralize a lot of that communication, where it's like, okay, I might be getting a text, I might be getting a hit up on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever it is. And it's like, I know that I'm not, a lot of times I have questions and other people have questions for me. Just feel like it's a way to centralize a lot of that information, right? Where it's like, okay, there might be experiences and gems and things that I can help kind of provide while also learning while teaching. There might be things that and people that I come across that add other value. And that's what this community is all about, right? Like just being able to add value. And, there could be tracks right before I got in the interview. Like I'm working on a Christmas project that for one of the briefs that I put into the community. And now it's turning into a Christmas album. Essentially, I got already 4 or 5 tracks done for it. It's like, well, might as well, put together an album for it, right? The things that we share, sync briefs and do these listening sessions and things like that, to where it's like coming across artists where it's like, okay, for a dark pop track, this person might be good. For an Afrobeat track, this person might be good, or whatever the case is. With that type of collaborative unit. So if anybody wants to join right now, it's I've kept everything free, right? Like eventually, it'll get to the point where maybe it can't be, but I'm still accepting people in. We got probably like 170 members. I'd love to get to that 200 plateau. So if you just go on my Instagram, the link is in the bio to join. It's hosted on School, and it's called, like I said, Hit Record Academy. So that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, so Joseph, you've performed alongside major label artists, Post Malone, Level Arts, and worked with ESPN. But you also mentor and produce a lot of independent artists, so who are grinding to get heard. From the seat in the studio, what's the number one thing that artists and producers are repeatedly getting wrong, or they underestimate, that keeps them stuck, even though their music is fire? To entrepreneurs building or growing a credit repair business, let me ask you something. Are you making sure your clients can submit their documents easily? And what systems do you have in place to prevent cancellations and have a consistent flow of leads? Because if you're relying on memory, sticky notes, and hopping between apps just to keep everything running and hoping that clients fall at your doorstep, you're setting yourself up for burnout, bottlenecks, and failure. That's why you need the No Luna AI framework and website template. It's built specifically for credit repair businesses and designed to work seamlessly with Credit Repair Cloud. With it, you can automatically onboard clients, collect documents without chasing anyone, streamline your entire workflow, and with the business automation add-on, put your whole credit repair operation on autopilot, from your lead magnet funnel to your follow-up sequence to your AI receptionist and even your payment collection system. Look, I get it. Running a credit repair business can feel overwhelming, from juggling apps, chasing payments, answering calls, and even drowning in admin work. That's exactly why we use this template for our credit repair and funding company. Because once your system runs smoothly, scaling becomes easy. So if you want to onboard clients effortlessly and automate your entire business from day one, the No Luna website template is your first step. Check it out at template.nolonallc.com.
Yeah, I think to start where you finish, right? Even though their music is fire, I feel like sometimes that's what is the trigger to what's wrong, right? Because a lot of times the music can be fire, they feel like they can take off the rest of the things. When we start talking about, there's a difference of creating music and being in the music industry or being in the music business. And if you're an artist who is trying to release things commercially, let's say, I hate to say it, but a big part of that is branding, marketing, and social media. And you could have really great music. I attest it to being like the professional athlete, right? Like if you could be born with just a certain set of talent and skills, right? But if you're not in the gym working like these other professional athletes, if you're not working on your craft and you're not honing it, and nowadays that doesn't just mean recording on your microphone. Honing your craft is executing your brand imaging, uh, doing photo shoots, doing music videos. Like if that's part of your goal, right? Like if that's part of your vision, honing in on your stage presence, understanding social media, and understanding your overall market. I think a lot of artists kind of just lean heavy on the music side, and unless they have a team, and a lot of times it's hard to build a team if you don't have some element of a track record. There may be some things that eventually a team can help offload from you, and that might be the best scenario. But it's like if you don't have a proof of concept, just like any other business, you can't walk into in any other line of work and just say, "Hey, I make great pizza. So let's just open a pizza shop," without having have understood what it really takes to manage a pizza shop, where the location is, where do you source the pepperonis and the cheese and the sauce, and like I think a lot of people who try to get into the music business, they sleep on the business part of it because like you said, the music is fire, and that a lot of times only one element, and sometimes depending on what that person's trying to do, sometimes even a smaller element of it, because as people may see coming into some of these listening sessions, even in my community, there's a lot of fire music. So it's like, what's going to separate what you do from the next person? And a lot of times it's not even just the music alone.
Mhm. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that your music at least pays the bill. Your work as a producer, it pays the bill. But there are artists and producers that have not gotten to the point where their music is able to foot their bill. So what will you advise for someone who doesn't have money, to even push to get the team, to get those branding, photo shoot, music video, because music is capital intensive. So what would you advise, for someone that's there with fire music but no money to push? What's your advice with those kind of people?
Yeah, I think it's all going back to like the word of the interview is going to be balance, right? Like it's all about balance. I think one of the things that I can say, one of the kind of things that I use is if if it's a 10-step sort of situation,
Mhm.
people normally know what step 1 is, and that's to start. People usually can envision step 10 being on the stage at the Grammys or wherever, like, their big, "Oh, I made it" kinda moment is.
Mhm.
I always say 2 through 9. 2 through 9, right? And each step, they may have different lengths of time in between each step, and you're working on your own time, not somebody else's version of what your version of success is. This is based off you. So I would say that in those 2 through 9, right, really having realistic goals and saying like, okay, in order for me to go from step 1 to step 2, what does that mean? Step 2 to step 3, what does that mean? And I use this other now just sort of saying called maximize the minimum. Right? If you're Rihanna and you're like, if Rihanna came back to music right now, she would have every advantage. She's a billionaire herself. She's already a, multi platinum selling artist. She'd have every major company, every major label fawning for her to put out a project, to do whatever. Um, we're not all Rihanna. Nobody's Rihanna. Rihanna's Rihanna. You know what I mean? So in that sense, you wouldn't be able to compare. I feel like I see this a lot where it's like I want to do my next rollout and I want it to look like Beyonce's or Rihanna's or Bruno Mars, Justin Bieber's. And it's like there might be elements of those rollouts or those things that you can be inspired by, but
Mhm.
you're not comparing apples to apples. It's like, okay, maybe the first place that I try to get a base in and really try to maximize. I might not have $1 million budget, but I might be able to put aside $500 a month or whatever the number is to say, with that amount of money, how can I maximize that amount of money? Is it social media ads? There's certain things that you can do that don't cost money, but they cost time. So you might be working a full-time job, but at night you might be creating your content for the next 2 weeks on social media to try to create a consistency and a fan base and sparking the algorithm and different things like that. But that might be where you need to start to maximize that work ethic, that area, to be able to say, okay, now I have a foundation there. Let me build. Let me build. And it might not be overnight, but sometimes you might catch viral with something, or somebody might hear or see you and say, you know what, this person, um, that where I've seen people get investors for even deals or whatever has been from people who have started to establish things on their own. And now it's like I can see this as a valuable product. I hate to call it that, but that's what they would see it as, to invest my money in, because now if I just start adding gasoline to a fire that they've already sparked, maybe I can help it grow. And nowadays that's what major labels do. Whether it's labels, investors, or what, any business, right? If you go into the Shark Tank, you're looking for an investment and you say, I have this great idea, and they say, what are your sales, right? What is your business plan? How are you going to grow this? I hate the music business. It's philosophically, it's the same thing. It's a different business, but people will look at it the same way.
Hmm. Yeah. So at Skilled Edge Show, we talk a lot about business owners, having an edge through fully automated AI marketing systems, credit repair, business funding. What's your take on the importance of building financial stability, and automations in the company's growth strategy?
Like I said, I use a lot of AI. I've been trying to get better even with how to use it. Like, I think that like I was just thinking today, and some of the systems that I'm using in my mixes, like if I could just, I do this every time I do a mix. If I could just automate this would make this quicker so I can get to the next one. So I think efficiency, especially with how consistent that people have to be and show up nowadays, is extremely important. And figuring out how to just use the tools that you have in your tool bag to make you more efficient, more desirable to be collaborative and push forward, are just so important nowadays, especially because we wear so many hats. The more things that we have to do, the more ways we have to figure out how to make them efficient. So, you know, back in the day, a singer could maybe just sing, right? But now if they have to do social media and they have to figure out how to use cameras and do editing, and like, there might be ways in figuring out AI and automation to help them with their captions, or help figure out how to clip a video like we're doing right now into, 100 other different clips so you can go and you can get the next one done. You know what I mean? So it's just about efficiency, and I think that it's a necessary component of the business world today.
Right. So looking ahead, what's next for you? Do you have any big goals, upcoming projects, or both in business and life?
I really look forward to continuing to build this community. I think that with it so far, it's new, but people have given me what I feel like is a really good response from these listening sessions and through information. I think with it is also starting to draw interest from people who could add value to the community, that in the past maybe I would have had to been chasing them down, but now they see me doing this, it's starting to draw them naturally.
Mm.
So I really look forward to seeing what can happen with that. I would love to obviously continue to get more consistency on, I've had some cool sync placements to my credit. Um, I would love that to be a more consistent part of my business, right? Where it's like, as opposed to them being here and there and making, a few thousand here and there or whatever, where it was like, okay, like that could be a viable substitute to be a
Mm.
full-time living, right? And other aspects of it, of what I do on the music side, whether continue to enhance on it, and on the personal side, it's also business, but in my, like I said, with some of my family businesses and things like that, to help grow those to the point where, as a family, we have something, to really be proud of, and continue to grow. Um, and honestly, just be able to be in a position to feel comfortable enough to take trips with family and friends, to have those moments where it's not all about work, right? And just have those moments where it's like, okay, you can breathe for a second and experience different parts of the world and different cultures and things like that. That to me is important because you need those experiences, in my opinion, to really then peek back into the music, right? Like live. You need to live life.
That's true. Yeah. So finally, where can people connect with you? And learn more about what you do.
Yeah, sure. I think right now the social media of choice for me is Instagram. So at Mr. Hit Record. I'm Joseph Lopez on LinkedIn. That's another professional platform I use. Also on Facebook. I would say right now, to be honest, it's either Instagram or on the community. I feel like the more that I build that up, the more concentrated the people who are really interested in connecting with me, especially on the music side, that's the best way because that's what that's all about. So Hit Record Academy on school. If you go to my Instagram on Mr. Hit Record, like I said, the link is in the bio and join now for free.
Thank you so much, Joseph, Mr. Hit Record Lopez, for joining us today and sharing not just your expertise as a producer, but also your personal insights on purpose, health, and balance. It's been a pleasure having you on the Skilled Edge show. And I know our listeners will take away powerful lessons from your story. And for everyone tuning in, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with someone that needs inspiration today. Follow Mr. Hit Record on Instagram and then join his community. And this episode was brought to you by No Longer, helping entrepreneurs streamline their operations, automate their growth, repair credit, and secure funding, that they need to scale with confidence. Until next time, keep your edge, keep going, and remember you're not alone.
Thank you so much.
Scaled, the platform you need.